Greetings and welcome to Outlaw Gamer Radio, the official podcast of OutlawGamers.com. This is the show where we live to play and play to live. I'm Brent Adams, joined by a man who can also be approached with either combat or stealth, but the one true way to slay him involves a box of chocolates and a Cameron Crowe film, Mr. Lauren Baumgarten. Lauren!
What's up, Brent Adams?
How you doing, buddy?
Good, how are you? I want to know... So your opening is not entirely untrue, but I'm just curious.
I'm not denying it, but...
I'm curious which Cameron Crowe film you had in mind when you wrote that.
Fuck, I know. I don't know if I've ever seen one of his movies.
Oh, come on. You have to have seen a Cameron Crowe movie.
I don't think I've watched Jerry Maguire all the way through. I don't think I've watched, what was it, Say Anything? I don't think I've watched that all the way. I don't think I've seen one of his films to completion. I mean, I could be wrong.
I get very confused when people use the words "to completion" when they're not.
Well, I mean,
to sex,
I've on television. Okay, like I've seen like the Show Me the Money scene from Jerry Maguire. Right? I've seen that you had.
I got you.
I've seen that you had me at a Hello scene, but I've not watched the movie.
Well, so what about? Okay, so if I was going to pick the movie with the chocolates, that would do me in.
Yeah, which would it be?
Almost Famous.
Almost Famous. That's the one I was thinking of. What did I say? Say Anything? I was thinking of Almost Famous. That's the one with That's the one with Goldie Hawn's daughter, right?
Kate Hudson, yes.
Yeah.
And who, by the way, Goldie Hawn is Kate Hudson's mother, just to be clear.
Yeah, that's what I said.
We don't refer to Kate Hudson in reference to Goldie Hawn. We refer to Goldie Hawn in reference to Kate Hudson because she's so ridiculously hot.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you go for blondes, I guess. Whatever.
Yes, Almost Famous. But anyway.
So Almost Famous would be the one.
Almost Famous would be the one.
Right.
Hold me closer, Tiny Dancer.
If if you want to like really romance me, like, you know, we're talking like the only thing that would really do it for me is probably Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's the greatest love story ever told.
There you go. All right, man. Do you want? I saw you put out a new Drive Home Breakdown. You want to just do movies this week? You want to just talk movies? Forget games?
We totally can. I'm down for it, man. We had a righteous time on the Drive Home Breakdown. We got to go see Ant-Man, which we haven't made it to the theater in a couple months. But we went and saw Ant-Man, which, as you will find out if you watch the show, exceeded expectations.
Oh, yeah?
And then we also did a wrap-up on the Comic-Con 2015 trailers and news that came out. Of course, the Star Wars panel, the Batman v Superman panel, and the new trailer that came out for that. Suicide Squad, which their trailer got released also, and then Deadpool, which I don't think they've actually officially released the trailer yet, although there was a leaked version that came out. The one that they screened at Comic-Con. Somebody got it on their cell phone, and it made it out into the wild. But anyway, we talk about all that and a lot more. It's a good time.
Yeah, right before you released those podcasts, somebody had just asked on our feed, like, when is Brent going to do another Drive Home Breakdown?
Yeah, we've been wanting to, it's just been, brutal. It's been brutal because Tony's work schedule is kind of, it's changed recently. And it's just made getting to the theater much, much more difficult than it was last year. And so we haven't really been out there much. But anyway, hopefully we're gonna get to see some more stuff, and we might even have an extra special guest star on a future episode. We'll see.
Did you book Ernie Klein for your other podcast?
God, I wish. That'd be so awesome. See, that's what I really want to do with the breakdown. Like, I want the breakdown to be, you know, like comedians in cars getting coffee. I want it to be that, but I want it to be people talking movies and stuff in the car.
So you want the actors to like drive around with you in the car?
I think
directors or whatever.
Yeah, and you know, we'll just like go and we'll do donuts, or we'll just get into some kind of vehicular mischief. We'll go unauthorized onto the runway of an airport and see if we can get it up to top speed and that kind of stuff.
I like it. Do you watch Lie to Me by any chance on Showtime?
No, I'm familiar with it, but I don't watch the show.
This Matt Damon has a cameo, and it makes me sort of think of that kind of thing, and I could see him maybe in your car riding around with you doing some stupid shit.
Listen, I mean, like if Matt wants to, just tell him to call.
Matt, if you're listening,
just tell him to call me. Let's talk some games.
Oh, hey, that's an idea.
Because we've got some games to talk about, and ostensibly it is a gaming podcast. Although listen, if you guys want to go to drivehomebreakdown.com and listen to some really cool movie stuff, who could blame you? But back to the games. As referenced in the introduction to this show, we have news now that probably one of the most oft complained about aspects of Deus Ex Human Revolution
and off-putting
was or has been rectified in Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and that is the fact that the boss fights can now be approached with the same flexibility as the rest of the game. Meaning, if you have a character that is tuned more for stealth, there is a stealth way to go about dealing with the boss fights in Deus Ex Mankind Divided. And this is a welcome change, because it was one of those things in the first game that really kind of threw you for a loop, given the fact that the game's focus was so much on put together your Adam Jensen the way that you want to with the skill set that you want until you get to the boss fight, in which case we hope you upgraded some combat shit. Otherwise, you're dead. So it was definitely good news. And it's not just that. You can do stealth, you can do combat, but you can also do conversations. And there's also lethal and non-lethal lethal and non-lethal options. As opposed to the boss fight having to end with the boss dead, there's now a non-lethal aspect to that as well. And I couldn't be more excited.
I agree with you, man. This is it was one of the most annoying things about the game to me, and they reference it in this article, the idea that you spend your whole time building out a stealth character, which is what I did because I prefer to play that way, and you get to the boss fights and you're screwed because you have to have combat, and I love the fact that not only did they fix this, but that they went a step further and added in a conversation tree.
I'm really curious about that.
And on top of that, the division between whether you may or may not have, you can kill them or not kill them. So they didn't just say, okay, we're going to figure out, we know it was combat focused before, we're going to give you a stealth option. But they took another step and said, okay, so if you conversationally, you could figure out other things to do. And I have to imagine that means something like environmental. Like if you ask the right questions, it might occur to you, you might find a combination to a building that's near the boss fight, and that you might be able to rig it such that something falls on. I don't even know, but
yeah, it's a really interesting prospect.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and I'm really excited for it, because then you can really truly play the game how you want to play it. I mean, this is you remember they farmed out the bosses,
and it shows.
Obviously, that it does show, and I'm happy that they learned the lesson from this, and I think it will bring it will keep that ever important pacing aspect of the game that was missing from the last game. So very excited about it.
I am too. As much as I loved Human Revolution, and I really really enjoyed that game. I was talking about that with my sister actually when we were visiting just a couple weeks ago. And man, it was such a great experience, and I'm very, very excited about seeing the iteration on that game moving into Mankind Divided, and to see the lessons learned being applied here. I think it could be a really, really great gaming experience. I tell you something else that I'm pretty excited about, but for very different reasons, is our Mellow, which is a combination tabletop board game, strategy game, card game that looks like, well, as IGN points out, it looks like a Donald Bluth film. It looks like something like the Secret of Nim, in terms of it having these anthropomorphic animal characters. But it's doing a lot of really, really interesting things in terms of gameplay. This is coming in September to PlayStation 4 and PC, but I believe it's also coming to iOS and possibly Android as well.
I haven't seen mention of Android. I hope that's the case.
I know they mentioned iOS. I couldn't remember if Android was in there or not. This will be out on PlayStation 4, Windows, Mac, and Linux on September 1st, and then I'm not sure about the iOS. It's currently available to PC players through Steam Early Access for $25 through July 31st. And we'll talk about this a bit, but really, you should go and watch the video that IGN has posted on this, because they do a really great job of showing off how the game looks and feels and how the game systems operate, what sort of the premise is. And I think you'll glean a lot from it. But essentially, this takes sort of a tabletop board game kind of game mechanic, which is there is a fantasy kingdom, and there is a king who has come down with some sort of condition they refer to as the rot, and he is close to death, and as he gets closer to death, he becomes more corrupted. And the goal of the game is for your character, to travel around the game board and to prepare for the eventual assault on the castle. And once you get to that final end game, then you have to either defeat the king, or you can win by having the greatest, I think they call it the prestige score. But there's a couple of game mechanics that are at play there. So if you just take that could definitely be a tabletop board game. But layered on top of that are some strategy and RPG aspects from video games, and then also this card game quality that they show off. It looks really, really cool. The cards that you see are animated within the game. It's a cool concept. I dig board games, as I've said on the show before. I love the idea of board games and video games merging, and our Mellow is exactly that.
Yeah, so Brent, I'm curious. Had you heard of this before?
No.
Seeing this?
No, I had not.
Yeah, neither had I. One of our listeners posted it, and I hadn't heard of it either. And I went and looked at it. And typically, I have to say that if this was a year ago, I probably would have never even looked at this game beyond like the tagline, or if I had, I would be staring at it, not understanding why somebody would be into this. Honestly, I haven't been into any of the card games or like Catan or any of those. Is I saying that right? Catan. Any of those card games or tabletop game simulators that have come out so far that I've Magic the Gathering, any of those things. Until, and I know you know what I'm going to say, Gwent.
Yeah.
And Gwent is so good that I've now actually taken the time to really look at this game, and it looks like a fantastic combination of I feel like this sort of, do you remember, was it there? So in Star Wars there was the holographic tabletop games,
yes,
but also in Star Trek, if I remember right. Well,
okay, Star Wars has got that's the one that's got like the little like 3D holograph, and I used to know the name of the game that they're playing. I can't remember what it is now, but like that you see Chewbacca and R2 playing, let the Wookiee win. Star Trek had 3-dimensional chess, right? I couldn't remember if they also had one with people, but they may have. I mean, I've not seen every Star Trek thing that's ever happened.
Right. So it gives that feel of like that game with that R2 and Chewie are playing, sort of with that 3D tabletop feel combined with something of a Gwent, and I think and then with RPG elements. And I think it looks really interesting. I had not heard of this game until I think it was today. And now I'm looking forward to checking this out when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I like everything that I'm seeing thus far.
Indeed. All right. So, Brent, our last story in the garage this week is very exciting.
You're not the only one who's very excited.
I don't know how much further you got in the game, but the team over at CD Projekt Red has revealed what their final piece of free DLC is going to be. Now, remember, there are still 2 expansions to come, paid expansions, one in October, and I'm not sure when the next one is slated to come.
It's early 2016, they're saying.
Both of which, each of which are supposed to be larger than The Witcher 2.
Yeah.
Which is insanity. So there's still those 2 paid expansions coming.
Now, wait a second. Are both the expansions larger than The Witcher 2, or do those expansions make The Witcher 3 larger than... How does it work?
So according to Eurogamer, it says 2 Witcher 3 expansions are planned, which should equal The Witcher 2 in length.
So the 2 of them together,
right?
Witcher 2.
Which was not a short game.
That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
So Batman, take note. So there's those paid expansions, Brent, but CD Projekt Red has put out a not insignificant amount of free DLC, including some tweaking, a whole new moveset, that sort of thing. Their final free DLC to Witcher 3, you ready for this? Very excited about this, is New Game Plus.
Yes.
So a whole New Game Plus mode where, we don't have details yet, but of course, ostensibly, you will be able to keep all of the gear you have gathered. I assume they will be significantly increasing the level cap. And I just think this is awesome addition to this game.
I got a message about this very thing, actually, from my friend Eric before we started recording today. And he was just telling me how incredibly impressed he had been with the game. He's not done with the main story yet, although he feels like he's closing in on it. And he was saying that it's shaping up to probably be the best game that he's ever played. And it was, and he was very, very excited about this prospect of a New Game Plus mode. It's something to dive back in and really enjoy the game. You know, maybe like that's where he goes and plays all the side quests, is after he's done this New Game Plus mode through the main story or whatever the case might be. But I tell you, I needed to hear that, and I needed something to kind of get me excited, because I'm having the weirdest sort of like quasi depression with The Witcher 3, and depression is probably too strong a word, but I just seem to be having such a difficult time mustering the motivation to come down here and play it. Intellectually, I want to. I think, yes, I want to play The Witcher 3. I want to have this great experience that everybody keeps talking about. But when I actually have a few free minutes to come down and do it, I don't know. I feel like, it's like I'm never going to get through this game. It's too long. I never, have more than 45 minutes of free time to play it, and I'll start playing it, and just as it's getting good, I'll have to stop, and I end up talking myself out of it, and it's really bumming me out because I want to play the game.
You should want to play the game. I mean, think about, what you need to do to keep telling yourself, Brent, to play this game is, you need to keep telling yourself it's Red Dead Redemption, because it is. And so, I mean, Red Dead Redemption could be just as daunting.
Sure.
But this game is just so wonderful now in the mechanics and in the way that you could embark down a side mission that could take you 6-7 hours, and you could just play that and be happy for the next 3 weeks, with your limited amount of time, and not even be playing the main story. Or I don't know what to say to encourage you to play it. It's worth the time investment, but it is. It's Red Dead Redemption, and imagine somebody came to you now. The DLC for Red Dead Redemption was fantastic, but imagine they had come to you and said, "All right, now we're going to do New Game Plus for Red Dead Redemption."
Okay, well, I'm sold. Give me a box of chocolates. We'll go to Kate Hudson's house, and we'll play The Witcher 3. Will that make you happy?
If we're going to Kate Hudson's house, we are not playing The Witcher 3, my friend.
I'm playing The Witcher 3. I don't know what you're going to be doing.
That's perfect. You stay out in the living room and play The Witcher 3. That works out well.
Okay, everybody, we are going to head into the clubhouse, pull up a chair, and let's discuss some of the very interesting things going on in gaming. But before we do that, let's review the poll results from last week's discussion. Lauren, would you like to share those?
I like how you prefaced your lead into this section was, we're going to talk about some interesting things, but before we do that... Let's talk about the stuff Lauren's going to talk about. Let's talk about the stuff Lauren's going to talk about. All right, so the poll from last week, Brent, we talked about what's going on in Rust and how they're handling race and gender and permanently assigning it to players. And the question you posed was, what do you think of Rust permanently assigning race and gender to its players? You gave our listeners 3 choices, and this is how it shook out, Brent. Coming in third place, I think it's a thoughtful, artistic decision to inspire an important discussion. 9% of the people took that answer. Coming in second place, Brent, with 32% of the vote. They took out an expected feature and found a good way to cover their omission. Mm-hmm. And coming in first place with 58% of the vote, overwhelmingly, our listeners said they're doing something different, but I don't think it warrants much controversy. So it's an interesting conversation, Brent. I am excited to talk about our topic this week.
Yeah, it's something that we've kind of touched on here and there in shows past, but there's a really interesting article on Polygon from Ben Kuchera that sort of lays out the timeline and some of the high points in this struggle between Xbox Live and PSN Plus.
Yeah, I think I think this is a good opportunity, Brent, to revisit sort of where we're at with these two services. Obviously, they both changed with this new console generation. And so I think it's a good jumping off point. And so the title of Ben's article is Sony Never Competed with Xbox Live, and that's how it won. Yeah. It's an opinion piece in which Mr. Kuchara proffers the idea that Sony actually did something. It's kind of interesting because I think the title might be a bit of a misnomer, but he proffers the idea that Sony essentially he talks a lot about how they gated online play by charging for it now. So if you remember, Brent, on the PlayStation 3, it did not cost you money to play games online.
Not a dime.
You could, however, purchase PlayStation Plus, and you would get some added benefits. Amongst those would be discounts on games and free PS Plus games. When we moved to the PlayStation 4, PS Plus was now required to play online games, thereby gating online gameplay behind a paywall.
Yep.
However, what Sony did by introducing PS Plus in the PlayStation 3 generation, offering services or offering rewards for that money, so you were actually getting something for the money you were paying, and then transitioning that to including online play, Mr. Kuchera espouses is sort of why they have beat Xbox Live. Now, Xbox Live has always said you're paying for online play and all the services that come along with it. PlayStation 3 took that model and began releasing, and we're going to talk about Rocket League here in a little bit. They began releasing first-run games through PS Plus. In addition, of course, they discount other games, and I was very pleased. I didn't actually know this until I read this article. I forgot about this. I mean, we've talked about it, is the cross-platform buying. Yeah. And I knew about cross-platform buying, but right now the only Sony device I own is a PS4, and so I thought, this doesn't benefit me, until I read that he got his copy of the PS4 version of Journey for free.
Because he owned it on PlayStation 3.
And I thought to myself, I owned it on PlayStation 3. I haven't bought Journey yet. And I went and looked it up, and what do you know? I got it for free. Yeah. And so there's definitely this sense, Brent, that I get, that I have gotten from PlayStation Plus, even in the PS3 days, where I was actually getting something for my money.
Yeah.
And so I think it's an interesting idea. You know, I think that, however, the flip side was on the PlayStation 3, or excuse me, on the Xbox 360, Microsoft did a significantly better job with the party system, voice chat, and so that was a big problem. This is remedied now on the PlayStation 4. And so I do feel like PS Plus has more value than Xbox Live Gold, but I'm curious. I know Tony has an Xbox One, Brand. I don't know how much time you spent with it.
Honestly, just a few hours.
So I'm curious.
And that was at launch.
Right. So I'm curious to know what your perception is, if you agree with Ben's viewpoint. I'm curious to know for our listeners that either have both, or from the ones who have an Xbox One. I don't have one either.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is PS1 winning? PS1 is PS4. I combined the two consoles.
You did, yes.
Is PS4 winning in terms of the services provided for their live $50 a year service?
It's hard to say. That, I mean, PS4 is certainly winning in terms of consoles sold.
Of course.
And Microsoft is obviously getting pretty aggressive in trying to change that. But in terms of the service, it's an interesting way to look at it, because what's interesting in that, what really defined the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era in terms of the online services was the fact that you had to pay for Xbox Live Gold to play online, but that the quality of the Xbox Live experience on the 360 was so much better than what you got on the PlayStation that nobody balked at spending the money. And Sony would tout, hey, we don't charge you to play online or to chat with your friends or anything like that. And it was a great marketing point. But
most people were like, I don't care, because it's so much better.
It didn't really pan out because every developer was sort of left to their own devices to implement their voice chat and how that was going to work within their games. And so the quality of the experience was wildly different from game to game, as opposed to having that unified experience that you did on the 360. However, fast forward to today, and to hear Ben Kuchera talk about it, ultimately the online play barely matters. It barely even registers. And I think that the point that he makes that is really, really spot on is the way that PlayStation did this, like the way that they kind of got the upper hand, is the free games. by giving you free games every month that come with your PSN subscription. Kacher is the one that likens this to basically Loot Crate for digital games. Yep. You pay a little bit each year, and you get free games every month. And it's a brilliant idea.
Which is like $4 a month, and you get it's exactly right. Yeah. You get like a Loot Crate of... I thought that was a great description. Because it is. Every month you're like, ooh, what are the upcoming... And sometimes they're great, and sometimes they're not.
Yeah. But it's a fantastic analogy. But now the one important difference is that these tie you into the ecosystem because you have to keep paying that amount every year in order to retain access to the games. If you leave PlayStation Plus, you lose access to those PlayStation Plus games that you already have acquired. And that is an incredible incentive to keep you locked into the Sony ecosystem. And yet, it doesn't seem like anybody really has a problem doing that. And I think that's the really important thing, is that Sony had engendered so much goodwill and so much excitement about all the free games and everything that you got as a PSN Plus member, that when they said, okay, well now, if you want to play online, you're going to have to pay for PSN Plus. And rather than looking at it as a negative, people's attitude was almost like, what? You mean I'm going to get to play online in addition to getting my free games with PSN Plus? No problem. You know, and that's the thing, is just that they had people excited about the service. And when they created the gate around online play, didn't even matter. Wasn't the most important thing about PSN Plus. The most important thing about PSN Plus was the games. And it was a brilliant move, and you saw how quickly Microsoft tried to follow in that wake and start
with games for gold,
and all that. I mean,
well, and Sony is now subsidizing. I mean, they're subsidizing. Obviously, I mean, it's not that they didn't do this before, but they're subsidizing. There's an interesting article where Rocket League, the folks over at Psyonix at Rocket League, talk about how they kind of waffled back and forth, and they were going to do the PS Plus, and then they kind of started getting the sense that they might be able to make good money on their game, and so they weren't going to do it. And Sony said, no, we really want you to do it. Well, basically, and they don't say this outright, but what do we got to pay you to make it a PS Plus game? And they work something out. And so Sony's really going after, again, like Resogun is a fantastic game that was free at launch, right? I mean, they're not just putting old titles on there anymore.
It was the game at launch.
They're actively yes, it was. And they're actively seeking out new titles to release for free when they are new. And I put 10 hours, we'll talk about it. I put 10 hours into Rocket League already, and all of it pure joy, and it was free, which is insane to me. And then there's a game like Styx, which is a game I never really wanted to pay for, but I'm kind of interested in playing, and now I have that as well. But so do you think, Brent, though, that Sony, do you think Sony, this was a plan of Sony's all along, or do you think that they started the PS Plus service to try and monetize their player base, at a time when they were already giving away the online content meaning the ability to play online, for free, right? Mm-hmm. And then they realized, okay, so now when we transition, we could paywall we've already engendered our player base, right? So when they first launched the PlayStation 3, all they had was the free online service. There were no free games. And they realized at that point, and they let it be that way for a little while. And then they realized at some point, okay, we have this enormous player base, and look how much money Microsoft is making at $50 a pop. Maybe we can monetize that as well, but we can't now take away their ability to play online because they've already been getting it for free. So what can we do? So maybe we offer them some old games and discounts on other games. And then once they did that and saw it was successful, then transitioned and the PlayStation 4? Or do you think when they launched PS Plus from the beginning, several years, I don't know how many years it's been at this point, 4 years or something, that they were always planning at the next generation to wall off the content? We're trying to figure out how, like I almost feel like they sidewayed into their good luck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I tend to not believe that things that are successful are done because of some incredibly brilliant master plan from the very beginning. I think that most things that are successful go through trial and error. And I think that the early iterations of PSN Plus show a service that is going through trial and error. And I think that the they talk about, I can't remember the executive's names, Jack Buser, who talked about this, and basically having that moment in the executive boardroom saying, here's what we figured out that we're going to do. Gamers want games, we're going to give them games. And everybody kind of laughed because it seemed so obvious. But that was the key to anybody giving a shit about Sony's online platform. Getting into that, I think that they realized they were onto something. And then from there, it's been growth, and really, it's not just free games. It's easy enough to give away free games. It seems to me what Sony is doing successfully with free games on PSN Plus right now, and this goes back to Rocket League a little bit, is content curation. It seems to me that Sony is using the free games on PSN Plus to promote titles on their platform that sort of show off some aspect of games on PSN, on games on PlayStation 4 that cast their platform in a good light, that show off the inventiveness of their developers, the diversity of their content ecosystem. And it seems to me that has also become a very important part of the PSN Plus story.
I agree. That's a brilliant observation, Brent. And that's something that Sony is trying to brand themselves as, and that is being supportive of independent game development.
Yeah. And all kinds of games.
Yes. And I think that's an excellent point, where it feels like to me, and again, I don't have an Xbox One, and I'm actually looking for our listeners who do have Xbox Ones to comment on this story, please. It feels like to me that Microsoft, when they were playing catch up, was sort of just was giving away older games. Now, I don't know if that's true, if they have first party titles or new, first run titles that they're releasing now. But I do think it's something that Sony has done very, very well at. And I'm curious to hear, as I said, from the listeners who have Xbox One and those who have both, to hear what they think of the online service at this point.
Yeah, I would really love to know sort of where those two things are in terms of an A/B comparison. But it's just remarkable. The whole story with the PlayStation 4 and the success that Sony is now enjoying with that platform is really remarkable. To look at the chain of events, to look at the timeline, and to see that the great success that Microsoft had early on in the 360, and then of course the entire generation, that entire run, PlayStation was steadily gaining ground on them, steadily making it up, and then of course the momentum that they had coming into that E3 conference in 2013. It's really remarkable to see how they have how they've gotten out ahead again. And I think that the thing that's really interesting is that Microsoft went through with the Xbox One basically the exact same cycle Sony had done with the PlayStation 3. They had been top dog, and they were really riding high on the success of the 360, and then it was almost like it just got the better of them, and they started trying to integrate all these other services and got really ambitious about the broader Microsoft ecosystem, and kind of it seemed like they lost sight of the forest for the trees. But it'll be very interesting to see if Microsoft stays as hungry as they appear to be right now, and how that plays out as this console generation continues to march forward.
You mean after talking about it's interesting to see whether or not Microsoft stays hungry, you're not going to insert a Gabe Newell joke here?
No, that was Tony's job. You're like, anytime somebody says anything about hungry or Steam, you just start screaming cheeseburger.
All right, Brent. Well, let's wrap this up. Again, we want to hear what you guys think about this subject as we head out onto the road and talk about one of the very games we've been discussing in this topic. All right, we are out here on the road, and before we jump into some Rocket League, which we're going to jump into,
fuck yeah,
let's talk about some Fallout Shelter.
Well, I don't have a lot to dish on in Fallout Shelter.
I do.
I've all but abandoned my original Fallout Shelter in creation of my new OCD focused Fallout Shelter. With the letters in order. Yes, that's correct. So I have completed the word special on the left side of my elevator shaft.
And you're going to screw up this game for me, Brent.
I have S and then IAL on the other side. So I just need PEC to finish off my second row. Although the thing about it is, I'm already thinking that I'm going to have to build a second one of these somewhere in my deeper down in my shelter, because although I've got, basically I can have like a maximum of 12 dwellers developing any one statistic at one time. And I've already maxed out on a couple of those. So what I'm doing is, the way that I did my old shelter is I would just like basically send my dwellers through every single room. So I thought what I was going to end up with is dwellers who had like rank 10 stats in everything. And then I would just basically have like robots. I would have like perfect android workers that I could just pull out of any room and put into another room, like cogs in a machine, and they would work just as efficiently in a power plant as they would in water purification center. And like I said, this is the fascism that Fallout Shelter brings out of the player. It just encourages you to do terrible, terrible things with society, or with the society that you're in charge of. Anyway. So this time around, I've accepted the fact that certain dwellers are good for strength stats, and certain dwellers are good for charisma stats, and certain dwellers are good for the perception stats, which I could not remember last week. And so now I've just settled on training up the one stat that they're really good at to maximum, and then in addition to that, I train up their luck stat, which the higher the luck stat, the greater the chance that when you collect like the rooms will develop, like power, or they'll develop food, and then you collect them once they've completed that task. And the luck stat means that you will have a chance of collecting some currency when you collect your food or your power or whatever. So I train up their stat, I train up the luck, and then I also train up their charisma, because if I decide that I want them to breed, a higher charisma means that they get it on faster, and it just makes the whole process go that much smoother. So yes, it's still a little bit of social engineering, a little bit of heinous social engineering going on, but not quite as much, a little bit more laissez-faire, in this iteration than in my previous vault. So anyway, I kind of liken my Fallout Shelter experience to like experiments with democracy and communism, things like that in Eastern Europe. Like honestly, like it feels like I could, if I were still in college, I could write a thesis on this and tie it to, some of the interesting social and political things happening in that part of the world in the 20th century. But it's just a fun iPad game at the same time.
Or Brent Adams' benevolent dictator.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some good news about Fallout Shelter.
Please share.
They announced the Android version.
Yes! What's the release date?
August 13th.
Awesome!
Just a couple of weeks away with some additions, I guess. I haven't read about what the additions are. But there are additions, so it will be out on August 13th. Although now I don't know if I really care, because I'm pretty sure you've ruined the game for me. Because now I feel like if I don't have my special in order...
Listen, that's the thing. I mean, Fallout Shelter is a blank canvas, my friend. You can do whatever you want with it. You know what I wish I'd done differently? Like, I'm almost ready to start a new base because I wish I'd put my second elevator shaft in a different location so it could be like more symmetrical in the "this is my disease."
Oh my God, it is a disease. However, I am excited for it, Brent. It's coming out in just a couple of weeks. I'm very, very excited for it. However,
yes,
what I really want to know is when the hell are they going to bring Rocket League to my mobile platform?
God, I can't tell you, but I also can't wait because.
So you played Rocket League?
I played Rocket League. I went through this. I went through this huge pain in my ass this afternoon trying to play this game. I got up while I was laying down and Z was still in bed, and so I got up early, hoping that I would get some playtime in before she woke up. And I get up and I go and I turn on the PlayStation, and it's got a system update. I'm like, you rat motherfucker!
Oh yeah, that's right. Wait, it's free. It's almost, you got to get it before whatever Friday.
Well, I'd already purchased it. That's the thing. Like I'd already purchased it on the PSN store.
Good man.
But I couldn't install it because I had to do a system update on PlayStation 4.
Right, of course. Yep.
And I got to go in and figure out like how to, turn that stupid thing on so it'll do it automatically in the background. But anyhow, so I had to sit there and wait for it to do the system update. And then I go in and I start downloading the game, and it's taking for fucking ever. and I'm trying to figure out why it's going so slow. And I go in and I discover that it's downloading the game and the update file for Rocket League at the same time. And so I pause the update file, and then the game download takes off, and it takes like 20 minutes or something to download. And then I get that, and I start playing that while the update patch downloads. And the point is that this process took 30 or 40 precious minutes of time while Z was still laying down that I wish I'd been playing. But I finally got into it, and my God, it is beautiful. I mean, it is just full of win. That game is...
So how much time have you put into it so far?
At least 2 hours, I guess.
Oh, yeah. It is, man. I probably put 10 hours into this game so far, and I absolutely freaking... I love it. I played with Aberjam yesterday. I really want to get like OGS players playing. I need people to play with US East Coast evening time on the PS4.
Yeah.
You can play cross-platform with PC players, although I don't really understand the point of that, because right now you can't search for your friends. So the fact that you can play PC players, I don't see the value in that. Yeah. So I never played Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket Powered Battle Cars, which was the predecessor to this game from 2008 that was released on PlayStation. Man, this is like I was trying to describe this to I was talking to my buddy, and I'm telling him about Witcher 3, and I'm describing it's like Red Dead Redemption, and it's like that quality. It's an amazing game. And then I was like, but let's talk Rocket League for a minute. And he's like, yeah. So tell me about it. And I was like, imagine multiplayer competitive Super Meat Boy. And I say that in the context of like, I think this game is so well balanced, and it's got this perfect combination of like perfect balance and fast gameplay. And each match is only 5 minutes long, and you're like just one more, and the next thing you know, it's like 3 hours later, and easy to play, very difficult to master. There's people already, competitive tournaments going on. I'm watching videos. I'm doing research. I'm looking up tips and tricks. I'm having so much damn fun with this game, man.
It's a riot, man. It's really good, and the thing that it's kind of called to mind for me is a conversation I was having with Daniel and Tony. They came over to the house over the weekend. We were hanging out, and we were just talking about that whole phenomenon in games of where we sit right now in game culture is games of every variety, of every genre are valid now, where that really wasn't the case for a while there. During the big push into 3D, latter half of the 20th century, early bit of the 21st century, there's a period there of 10 or more years where the focus was on, move to 3D, get into 3D, and everybody just, dumped 2D by the wayside. And along with it went a lot of kind of styles of gaming. And the thing that Rocket League calls to mind for me is like an NES game. Like it feels like there could have been a game on the NES that was about playing football with cars.
Right, by the way, in case we didn't tell you, that's what it is.
There may very well have been a game on the NES that was about playing football with cars, for all I know. But that's what this game is. It's a simple concept taken into the 21st century era of gaming, where you can do a game like this in the Unreal Engine and have it play really, really smoothly and look really, really good, and incorporate all these terrific online features. And that's the thing that I think I love about it, is I love how just sort of pure an idea it is as a game. It's just very simple. As you said, it's easy to play, difficult to master. That to me is kind of classic game paradigm, and I'm overjoyed with it, man. I mean, it is so insanely fun to play, and just out and out addictive. The desire to be better and to to kind of like really master the mechanics of the car, and how to approach the ball, strategies for near goal play as opposed to far goal play, and just like all that stuff. I mean, it makes me actually give a shit about football, and I don't give a fuck about football.
I couldn't agree more, man. I would never. Just for those of you that are listening to this and thinking, so it's soccer with cars, right? Like two things that couldn't interest me any less, really, honestly. And when I saw this game, the only reason I picked up the controller and actually downloaded this was because so many people on our website were talking about it. And if you're listening to this and thinking, I would never be interested in this or whatever, I still encourage you. You got a few more days to get it for free on the PS4. It's $20 on if you're FPS Plus. It's $20 on PC. I never thought this would be a game I would at all enjoy, and I am now totally obsessed with this game. And I can't wait to. I can't. It's sitting on my TV right now in the menu screen, and as soon as you and I are done recording, I will be back playing the game.
Well, then let's finish the hell up, and I'll join you.
All right, cool. Thank you very much, Brent. You finish it up? Cool.
Let's go ahead and go into the sunset before Lauren leaves and just tosses us the keys and say, "Here, lock up the podcast when you're done."
Yes.
Let's go ahead and go into the sunset. Lauren, what's your into the sunset this week?
My end of the sunset this week, Brent, is a YouTube video from user Jacksepticeye. It is a video of a game that one of our listeners posted about. It's not a game I've played, but it looks really interesting, and the game looks very interesting, and I'm encouraging people to check it out, and the video is actually really funny too. But the game is called Tembo the Badass Elephant, which, if the title isn't alone enough to get you to look
already, what are you going to do?
That's right. It's a 2D side-scrolling platformer with you play an elephant, Tembo.
No, really?
Go figure. And I thought this game looked really cute, Brent. I haven't checked it out yet because I've been so obsessed with Rocket League. But I thought was deserving of at least a little notification. I know at least one of our listeners is playing it. So check out the video. There is some adult language in it, but the dude is hysterical. He's got like 1 million views, and the game looks awesome. So prepare to awesome Tembo the Badass Elephant.
Thank you for the recommendation.
Yes.
I'm also going to point everybody to a bit of a gameplay trailer for a title coming very soon, actually, to PlayStation 4, PC, and Xbox One called Submerged. And there's a cool write-up on this on Engadget, which is what we were linking to, and then they also have a YouTube video of the game in action. And I guess the thing that I would open with, and this is kind of what caught my eye, and maybe think it might catch your eye, Lauren. The opening sentence of the article is, in case you've already finished Journey and are looking for another gorgeous game that eschews violence, Submerged hits the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in early August. And just the idea that there could be a game similar, perhaps in flavor to Journey, was definitely something I was interested in. Submerged appears to take place in a post-apocalyptic kind of world where we see the remnants of the human civilization we know now buried, submerged, as the title infers, but
yes.
But buried beneath hundreds and hundreds of feet of water. And the main character appears to be a young woman, and we see that the game is really about traversal and exploration. Doesn't really appear to be any combat as we've seen in other games. And there are certainly bits and pieces of this game that will remind you of The Last of Us or Enslaved: Odyssey to the West, in that it is got that flavor of nature sort of reclaiming civilization from mankind. It looks like it could be very interesting. The tone has certainly got my attention. So I'm anxious to see a little bit more about this once the game comes out and people actually get the opportunity to play it a little bit. I'm curious if it is as satisfying to play as it appears to be.
I am too, Brent. And looking at the images here, I do remember us talking about this game a while back as well. And I'm very interested in this as well. And it's coming soon in early August. Yes?
Yeah, just a little over a week. So
that's awesome.
Anyway, that's it for me. Into the sunset this week. And I believe that we really are going into the sunset now. So
that is a show. And with that, we will ask you guys, as always, to comment on everything we talked about today, whether it's Submerged, Tembo the Badass Elephant, Rocket League. Start playing Rocket League if you're not. Fallout Shelter. What we talked about when we were hanging out in the clubhouse, whether or not Sony's online offerings for PlayStation Plus are better or worse than Xbox One's Xbox Live service. And then what we talked about up in the garage, The Witcher 3 getting a new game plus mode, our Mellow coming in September, and Deus Ex Mankind Dividends boss fights change. So that's a mouthful. Changing to allow you to actually stealth or converse your way through the boss fights and not just have to battle. We want to know what you guys think on all those topics and anything else related to gaming. As usual, We want to hear all of your thoughts. He is Brent Adams. I am Lauren Baumgarten. And remember, you don't stop playing because you get old. You get old because you stop playing.